Hello and welcome to part 2 of this Horror House podcast. This time we're delving into Chud 2.
Bud the Chud. You gotta put some respect on it. I'm Chris. I'm going first.
Bud.
I'm going first, Dave. I'm Chris.
Oh shit. Good for you, man. Good for you. Take the initiative.
Who are you?
But do it again and I will kill you. I'm Dave.
You are Dave.
I don't know why I made that a question. I'm Dave? Am I Dave? Yeah.
I threw a wrench in the whole thing. I fucked it all up. You can reach me at Chrisercist on Twitter if you want to complain to me about how I have ruined the intro to this episode. Or you can tell Dave. Dave, hit him with your social.
You can hit me up on Twitter at Sweetness1. That's sweetness with 6 E's and sweet.
Or
you can also hit us up at the Horror House 2 at Horror House 2 on Twitter.
The number 2. The Horror House Facebook page. Or the good old Gmail. You can get us, which is
Horror House Podcast at gmail.com.
There it is.
HorrorHousePodcast@gmail.com. You can also hit us up on Anchor.fm. You can leave us a voice message.
Yes, please do.
Because it's the future.
You hear us talk all the time. We want to hear you talk. Is that weird? That's not weird at all. But before we get into the magnificent animal,
leave us a message with your sexy voice.
Absolutely. And we will maybe even play you on the show. Before we get into this beast that is Chud 2, this magnificent animal, stallion, great. I'm crying. I'm
sorry. She's a beauty.
I just love it so much. Before we get into this,
she's a beaut. That number 2.
There was something that you have seen that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah. So, literally 5 minutes have passed since we finished taping. Taping is digital, so it's not really taping. Recording the last episode.
It's all taping.
But I forgot one of the movies I watched this week, and I got to give a shout out to Matt. He's the one that turned us onto this. So last Sunday we sat down as a family and we purchased on the Voodoos Unhinged with Russell Crowe.
I have not heard of this.
It is. Yeah, I hadn't either, and it's new. It's not horror really. It's action, but it's very tense. It's very scary in some ways because you know just the idea that someone could take road rage to the level that Fat Russell Crowe takes it in this movie. I mean, it just seems like something that somebody could flip the fucking switch and this could happen.
Wow.
Fat Russell Crowe. Yes, I said it. Fat Russell Crowe. He can't run after me. He's too fat. I get out the door. He's stuck. He looks like a beast. He's a fucking national treasure, his acting in this fucking movie. Or he really legitimately lost his fucking mind. But man, Russell Crowe, you go.
Method man. Is he a method actor? I don't even know. I don't know much about Russell Crowe, really.
I don't know if he is or not. But, you know, he's been in a few things. He was, you know, obviously Gladiator's probably the biggest thing he's known for.
A Beautiful Mind. I had to watch that for school. I enjoyed that. I can't remember it now.
Beautiful Mind.
I liked it then.
Yeah, he's a decent actor. You know, unfortunately, he kind of became a punchline because he fucking threw a phone at somebody. I don't know. He's South Park has an episode with Russell Crowe where he's like, I hate cancer, so I'm going to the hospital, and I can't fight cancer, so I'm going to punch this old man with cancer, and he beats up this old middle. It's pretty fucking great. But the acting in this is really good. He did really good.
Nice. For me, still the same. I'm playing Mass Effect Remastered, and that's fucking great. I forgot to mention that. So I got that going for me, which is nice. Took me 25 hours before I saw the ass of an alien. My money has been worth it.
Worth it.
That's my
Worth
review of
it.
Mass Effect. One of my favorite games. Which, speaking of which, you bought me for my birthday like 15 years ago, whenever it first fucking came out. I just got my Xbox 360. Yeah, we just went after the gym, and you're like, get a game. And I'm like, really? And that's how I got Mass Effect 1. And I'm playing it again right now. Horror House Trivia.
Nice. So nice.
But,
yes, this will come up. This will come up in your final quiz.
Yeah.
Rabble, so pay attention.
This will affect your grade point average. What also will affect your grade point average is listening to this ad. Thanks for listening to the Horror House Podcast. If you have something you'd like to share with the world in podcast form, whether it's movies or TV or anything, we have the easiest way for you to do it, and it's free.
It's Anchor, and they have all of the creation tools you need to make your own podcast. You can record and edit from a computer or from your smartphone.
And Anchor will get your podcast out there to all the places you'd ever want it to be. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it. Plus, the money. You can get it from your podcast with no minimum number of listens. And what's better than that?
Free. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. It's got everything you need to make a podcast in one place.
And we're back with, this is going to be great, Dave. Bud the Chud. Chud 2, Bud the Chud. Sorry. Chud 2, Bud the Chud. There we go. Got it right. 1989.
I know I confessed it at the start of the last episode that I had never seen this. I feel so bad for have never seen this. I feel like part of my life has been wasted. But now I've seen it, and it's great. It is exactly what I liked back in the late 80s, early 90s, man.
There is a part of me
I loved my serious horror.
Go ahead.
You go.
There's just a part of me that
loved my
can't
serious
believe
horror.
No, you. I'm like Charlie Brown with the football.
All right. Okay. I'm sorry.
This is not in line with the first movie whatsoever. In any way, shape, or form.
Did the Chud part of this just get tacked on?
That's my theory. There's not a lot of information about this movie, believe it or not. There is just not a ton of info out there. I would love something to sink my teeth into about this movie, because I love this movie. Stupidly, I love this movie maybe. But I've thought the same thing, and my theory about Chud 2 is I think this was just some zombie comedy movie from the late 80s, which was not unheard of. There was a couple around that time. And maybe a producer or somebody was like, hey, like, I know we're not going to make a whole lot. It's probably going to go straight to VHS. I know a guy that can get us the Chud. Get us the Chud name. What did you think about that? $100. $100 for Chud. And I think that's what happened.
Yeah, they threw it in. What do you think? So if they hadn't attached the Chud name, what was the name of this movie going to be? Bud the Zombie?
I don't know. It's just so fully ingrained as Chud 2 to me.
Zombie shenanigans?
I can't. There was one that was, I think, around this time, maybe give a year or two. It was, I forget the name. I remember it every now and then, but it was somewhat similar. That, you know, a boy and a girl are, you know, wind up at a mortuary, and then, you know, a couple zombies get reanimated, but it's very campy, and I'll have to, maybe that'll be in the next season when I remember the name of it again. But it's similar to this, could be a double feature. And then there was another one there's a couple that come to mind that are in that kind of tone. This is not a Chud movie. It could have been like
absolutely not.
What's like a pun with like you are what you eat or something? Something cheesy like that would have some kind of thing, or like where's the beef? I don't know. Some kind of thing along those lines would have absolutely fit. Because
meat.
It could have been just meat, an acronym of meat. You know, like I don't know what that could be. Twitter poll of the week. Give us a good acronym for what the title of this movie could have been if it was called Meat. Man eating addicts.
Animated. Terrestrial.
But this is, like I said in the last week, this is such a VHS movie to me. This may be my most rented VHS movie of all time. And I saw it when I was super young, and I think it's actually probably not a bad movie to show like younger kids that want some horror. It's maybe here and there, maybe a little much. It did freak me out severely. But like, you know, watching it.
Most of the gore happens off screen.
Yeah.
What happens on screen is kind of goofy. There's not a lot of sex. There's not a lot of drugs. I mean, this is pretty for especially for the era.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if people know this, but the late 80s, early 90s were full of fucking weed heads. But we on the Horror House podcast swear we have never used a pot needle, and we never will use a pot needle.
I couldn't pick a pot out of a lineup if you had me. Tried to meet.
Yeah, I have never gone up to my classmates and said, "Hey man, do you want to buy a weed?"
But I tell you what.
Or 3. Do you want to buy several weeds?
There was a time.
I've never done it.
There was a time that a guy I went to high school with, me and him, we had to stay after school one time. And so, listen, it's super weird and probably never happens anywhere, but our science teacher had a dead body that we were going to examine for high school. And then we lost it.
What the fuck?
Yeah, but see, then we went and we stole.
Did you go to high school in an 80s movie?
Yeah, it was just a suburb off a mountain, like a lot of 80s suburbs. That is it's such a, I don't know if it's I don't know that it's a trope, but in my brain it's a trope, and I don't think it really is. It's such a trope that it could only be contained in one movie. Is high schoolers were going to examine a dead body for high school, which, is that a thing? Has that ever been a thing? And 2, they lose it and steal one from the fucking government. Like, what government just is like, oh shit, chief, so that body we had under lock and key, damn, some kids came and stole it.
Let's take it out of well, I mean, can you blame the kids, or should you blame the government and their handling of this fucking reanimated corpse? This thing is top secret, so let's leave it outside while we go in and have a cup of coffee and a smoke.
Yeah, it's so unbelievable, but it works so well in my stupid brain. It's a garbage movie for my garbage brain, is my box quote.
It's the opposite of Chud. It's not trying to tell some deep story. It's just fucking fun, and it does a good job of it.
The only way that I can connect these at all, other than there's a line, you know, I mean, they call them Chuds obviously, but I mean, they kind of look like the homeless guy that was turning, so maybe they're not quite complete Chuds. And that's the best I got. I think that's the best anybody's got for. I mean, they don't look as good as he did.
He's got the sharp teeth.
Yeah,
he's got the sharp teeth, but the Chud mouth got this round, fucking gaped asshole mouth, like anal gangbang gaped mouth is what the Chuds had. I guess the people, the homeless guy that was turning didn't have that yet. He just had the sharp teeth, and that's what Bud's got.
Well, I mean, it's got to get used up a little bit before it. Rim shot. Was there a rim shot? Anybody? No? Okay. And just the simplicity of how he's brought back to life. Maybe it's just because I don't know if this is the first horror movie I ever saw, but it's one of the first ones I ever saw. And so everything in it just seems like a trope to me. And I'm thinking maybe they're not, but like him coming back to life with the simple dropped a blow dryer into the bathwater that he's laying in, brought him back to life.
Yeah.
And the fucking kid is like, we're going to be rich. People are going to want to know how we. It's so. I don't know.
Yeah, but at some point in the 80s, 90s, I feel like everyone thought, yeah, enough electricity and you can bring a corpse back to life.
It is kind of the Frankenstein kind of thing in a way. But, and he is. Oh, shit. I just realized, and you made me realize that. So in the first Chud, right, when we talked about this, he was going after John Hurd's girlfriend, who I've unfortunately forgot her name. I'm so sorry.
Lauren,
going after her, and what did you say? Like he had such a boner for his neck and all that. Our Bud, the Chud in this movie, also has an infatuation with a woman, which is, I would say, a little bit more awkward in this one.
Yeah, it's a little more obvious that
minus the neck erection.
Yeah.
No budget for the neck erections.
No, his neck stays intact. But the woman doing the jazzercise sure was hoping he had an erection. I mean, she was hot for him.
That was turn of the tables, if you will.
Yeah. Yep.
And she was not put off by him until she saw his teeth, which is very judgmental of her. I cannot believe that she would be that way.
Kids, any kids out there, one, your parents are horrible parents for letting you listen to this piece of shit podcast. But two, if you are listening, brush your fucking teeth, brush and floss, take care of your teeth. Nobody will fuck you later on if you have a yuck mouth.
Yes, Bud. If Bud the Chud can teach you anything, it's you only get one set of choppers, dude. Gotta take care of them somewhat, or you're not gonna get the aerobics lady.
I'm a little disappointed. So let me say I was a little disappointed. Mm-hmm. He bites into the brain at least, or eats the brain of the aerobics lady. He this happens a few times. I mean, a couple people he eats, but you never see them with any wounds.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, like a majority of the violence, and there's not really any gore, but a majority of the violence in this movie is off screen or behind a couch or stuff like that. Yeah, it's nearly a family movie. So in a way.
Yeah, the most violent act that I remember the whole movie was when Steve kicks the fucking dog down the stairs, and Stella and I both, and we're dog people, we both chuckled a little bit because it was just so outrageous.
He does not hold back. That would not make it into a movie these days. I thought the same thing. I'm like, holy shit, this, more than anything in this movie, you could show penetration before you could show an animal getting kicked down the stairs at this point in cinema. And yeah.
Yeah, it is.
That was kind of the most violence in the whole movie that's shown.
Yes, yep.
I mean, it's not a real dog. Anybody listening that's not watched this, it's not a real dog that he's kicking, but it's Oh,
It's pretty great.
it's pretty funny.
When the dog gets the mailman and drags him off, I thought was fucking hilarious.
And the girl,
When he gets the
the sister
soldier's
waving.
like, "What are you doing?" Yes, yes.
And speaking of the dog, the military chauffeur at the one point is one of my favorite parts of the movie. He's like, "Come here, puppy, come here." I said, "Come here." I still don't understand,
Like
but it makes me laugh.
like that's going to make the dog.
Yeah.
Right.
He loses his patience for half of a second, and then immediately is like, "I'm sorry, come on." It's so weird. I love it. That's the only line in the whole movie that I can remember ever. But it just, God, this is
We
like
would be
Return of the Living Dead
remiss
for me.
if we don't credit Garrett Graham
Oh yes,
for his role as Bud and his ties, obviously, to the Police Academy series. Which I swear, if we start another podcast that's not horror movies,
Police Academy.
we have to do Police Academy. Yes. How many times have we talked about Police Academy?
I think
over the year and a half.
Wasn't there there was one episode where I think that was what I was watching at the time. I was working my way through the Police Academy movies. I think that's as far as I got.
Yes, I believe so.
At the time, but yeah, I remember that. Garrett Graham though has been in like name an 80s or 90s TV show. He's been in it. He's been in it. Like I'm not even joking.
Everyone in this cast is that way. So you got Brian Robbins, who plays Steve, one of the main slacker guy.
Not much of an actor he's done a bunch, but went on to produce like all these Nickelodeon kids shows like crazy.
He starred in Head of the Class.
Oh yeah.
I was looking up his IMDb. He starred in Head of the Class, but then he was in one episode of every other late 80s
like Growing
sitcom.
Pains and you know
Yes.
This and Chud 1 have a lot of people that you know the 80s horror shows like Monsters and Tales from the Dark Side, Freddy's Nightmares. A lot of these people in both movies wound up in at least one of those episodes, and I didn't look to see if any of these people had wound up in the same episode. That'd be interesting, but that's a lot of checking that I'm not super into.
Well, and you also have Norman Fell, who for a while was Jack Tripper's landlord in Three's Company.
Yes. And him and, is it Joan or June Lockhart? I always forget her name.
Joan Lockhart.
June Lockhart, the mom in the original Lassie TV show. What was the space? Danger Will Robinson, Lost in Space. She was in that.
Lost in Space, yes.
I wrote a specific note about June Lockhart, who was just her first role was in 1938. Get this. She was in a movie just last year as a voice. She's still acting.
Fuck.
I was like, June Lockhart.
90 fucking years later.
Yeah. Crazy. So all the people in this movie are workers. They will fucking work and have worked for decades. It's impressive. And I want to go back to Garrett Graham, who, we're saying, all these 80s and 90s shows. He was in a lot of horror stuff too. Chopping Mall. Have you ever seen Chopping Mall?
Yes, I love it.
That maybe deserves
Shout
a
out to Dick Miller.
It's Alive 3, Child's Play 2, Terror Vision, which is one of my weird favorites that I kind of don't like, but love it because of that. It's weird. But the dude was also wrote lyrics for a Grateful Dead song. Did you know this?
I did not know that. That's fucking insane.
But he was a songwriter at one point. He's not acted in about 10 years, which is unfortunate for the world. So I assume he's retired. But hats off to Garrett Graham. Holy shit. I'm glad you brought that up. I had a whole paragraph about Garrett Graham.
Oh, man. The cast goes on. Jack Riley, who plays Steve's dad, I knew him, but I couldn't place him. He's in a ton of shit. He's in the Tim Conway shows. He's here and there in a lot of different TV shows. You know, a lot of comedy. He's has a strong comedy background. But you know, he's Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, one of the highly underrated movies of all time, if you ask me. Yeah, I couldn't quite place him. But he also was in a lot of those 80s sitcoms, Different Strokes, Silver Spoons, after school special type stuff, Spaceballs, an episode of Alf. So, you know,
him and the mom, and I think it's just because I'm so biased towards this movie, but they are very much to me the movie or TV like 80s parents kind of. I mean, not like in the way that like, you know, Growing Pains and shit like that, but like it's just the parents that you would cast for that. Excuse me. They fit so well.
Yeah, you look at her, Scarecrow and Mrs. King, Punky Brewster, Trapper John, an episode of Chips, an episode of Moonlight, 2 episodes of the Incredible Hulk TV series. Yeah, she's got quite the backstory too.
Let us not forget Robert Vaughn, who, I mean, he's maybe even acted in more stuff than Garrett Graham. He was maybe the generation prior's Garrett Graham, or maybe Garrett Graham was that generation's Robert Vaughn. But I mean, he was in, you know, so many westerns, so much stuff. I knew him specifically as a kid from Superman 3 because he was the villain of Superman 3, which is still fucking great. I don't care what anybody says, Dave. I'll fight him right now. Dave.
Oh no, I'm with you. It's my favorite fucking Superman.
I love that movie
with Richard fucking Pryor.
Yeah. And there's some horror
but he's
in that
also
movie
in
too.
Bullet, Towering Inferno.
So much stuff.
You know, he's so good. He was more of the handsome leading man type. Now he more often than not was not the good guy. It seems like he had a knack for playing that bad guy.
Yeah, that's where I mostly know him from. Is every time I'd see him, I'd be like, oh yeah, he's a bad guy.
Right. He just seems like an asshole.
Yeah.
But he's probably not a sweetheart. He's probably a sweetheart in real life. Yeah. You're a sweetheart, Robert Vaughn.
And then finally, to get off the actors, I want to bring up, and I told everybody to stay tuned for this episode because I had some Red Dawn kind of thing I wanted to talk about, right? So I think this is a good time to bring it up. So Bill Calvert, who played what was his character's name actually? Kevin. He was Kevin in Chud 2. A year prior, he was in a movie called Terror Squad, which, for intents and purposes, it was kind of a Red Dawn ripoff in ways. And let me throw this plot description your way, Dave, and get your thoughts. let me get my movie voice on a little bit. A squad of Libyan terrorists.
Give us that.
A squad of Libyan terrorists infiltrate the city of Kokomo, Indiana, and take over a nuclear power plant. A counter-terrorist expert must stop them before they blow it up. That's the description. Holy shit.
It sounds like a job for Chuck Norris to me.
So this sent me down a rabbit hole. Let me tell you. First off, no nuclear power plants in Indiana except an unfinished one in Jefferson County, just south of Hanover, which I had no idea about, was abandoned in 1984.
I knew about it.
I've never heard of this in my life. I was like, what?
Are they saying that's unfinished?
They're tearing it. It's been mostly torn down.
Are they still saying that's unfinished?
Yeah, it's not. It was abandoned in 1984. Okay. It was the most expensive.
I do know of that one. I lived in Hanover for a while.
It's the most expensive nuclear construction project ever abandoned. $2.5 billion. I'm like, I've never heard of this. Fuck. It is so close. Never heard of it in my life. Also, these Libyans, I don't know what to tell you, but I don't think Kokomo, Indiana is that hard to infiltrate, fellas. So, even probably especially in 88.
Let me round out the David verse 2, though. I'm pretty sure that Doc Brown stole his nuclear material from the Libyans.
Oh, shit.
To power the fucking DeLorean.
Oh, can you somehow tie Chud 2 to Back to the Future?
So, Doc Brown, after the Chud incident of 1984, Doc Brown builds the DeLorean and he strives to make the world a better place. So he goes back and stops the contaminated hazardous material underground urban disposal project. But that waste still had to go somewhere. So he didn't prevent it. He just moved the problem somewhere else. And the problem developed slower because it developed differently in a more controlled environment, and the government controlled the chuds, including a specific chud named Bud.
Oh my god. Amen. Good night, everybody.
How's that?
Great episode, great season. What a way to put a bow on it. Right here, this thin.
When you told me you were bringing a little Red Dawn my way, you know what I was thinking?
What? No.
Do you know where I was going? Do you know where I was going?
I have no idea.
I thought you were going. Judd Ullman, who plays one of the government types, Sam, actually is in Red Dawn.
Judd Ullman.
He is credited as the Nicaraguan captain.
Oh, so, okay.
But this guy's got the resume. He also played in Dune, 1984's Dune. He played in Howling 2, an episode of The Fall Guy. 3 episodes of the A-Team. 2 episodes of Scarecrow and Mrs. King.
Interesting.
An episode of Freddy's Nightmares.
Oh, that was the other show I was trying to remember as we were saying all these people had been in these 80s shows.
He was also in a small little full moon picture you might know as a Doll Man.
Speaking of Doll Man, the writer of Chud 2, how do you pronounce his name? Ed Naha? Which direction would you go with that pronunciation?
Nah.
There's a lot of different ways.
I'm Ed Nah.
He has a bit of horror history. He wrote Troll. Do you remember fucking Troll?
Yes.
Wrote Dolls, which was the precursor to Puppet Master. Wrote Doll Man. Wrote Doll Man versus Demonic Toys. Fuck Full Moon, by the way. And wrote 2 episodes of Tales from the Crypt. This dude has some horror on him. Very, very nice. But, Dave, the most notable thing, other than Chud 2, that he wrote was Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Hold on. He wrote that with Stuart fucking Gordon and Brian Usna of Reanimator fame.
Holy shit.
We just talked about them a couple episodes ago.
Right.
I didn't have any fucking idea that they wrote the story for Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, but they sure the fuck did.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Did you have any idea that was a thing? Because I'm reading this and I'm like, is this the Mandela effect? Am I seeing like somebody else's history changing? Because what? I don't know how to, what?
Yeah, no, that's insane. That is insane. I did not know that. I'm well aware of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Yeah.
Honey, I Blew Up the Kid.
I mean, wouldn't you think that's like
Honey,
Robert
We Shrunk
Zemeckis
Ourselves,
or like Spielberg? Maybe not Spielberg, but like I don't know, just like an 80s dude.
It really does feel like a Spielberg or Zemeckis.
I don't know who directed it, but they are the ones who wrote it, and I'm just like, You ask me about Stuart Gordon immediately. I'm like, Reanimator. Brian using the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, wow, I can't believe this. I still can't believe this. It's so weird, but it is a thing, and it's right there. Holy shit. My mind's still blown. So I'm glad that I was able to also blow your mind. So there's that. Maybe I blew somebody else's mind. No more mind blowings. It's back to Chud 2. God, I could just talk about this movie forever. What have we not talked about here? Any other things here?
I know the synth sounds of Chud 1 are really good.
Yeah.
I was really digging the soundtrack for Chud 2. I'm sorry.
The theme song is bopping. I like the theme song.
It's got a little rockin'. It's got a nice beat, and you can dance to it.
The Bud the Chud song. Mm-hmm. I hear it in my head right now. It maybe never leaves my head. I will say, as much as I enjoy Chud 2, I gotta give the soundtrack to Chud 1 though. I'm sorry. But
No, but it's no.
It is not.
I'm here to party.
Yes, that's a whole. When we do Return of the Living Dead, the next episode where we go back over all the things that we forgot to talk about, that's yeah. You know, I was thinking.
It's so good.
I was thinking about the name Bud, right? And the zombies, the chuds, I really don't know what to call them. I guess they're chuds. They're really just zombies, but you know, they're kind of intelligent. They're driving cars, going to get fast food. They're barbers. You know, they have some brains still working. Is it wrong of me to assume that somebody saw Day of the Dead and saw Bub and said, "Gosh, he's kind of funny talking. Like does weird things. Maybe I do. Maybe we'll write a movie about Bud the zombie."
Very nice.
And
the way they reproduce through biting, or they spread whatever. So does that mean at the end of during Chud 1 that Lauren is destined to become a Chud? Because she cuts that fucker's head off and it bites her on the ankle.
Maybe. I mean, the dude, the homeless dude, I mean, he had a way bigger of a chunk out of his leg, but I mean, that's what got hit. I didn't even think of that. You maybe, yeah. If we go by Chud 2 info, then that's, yeah. She's dead. She's a Chud.
Yep.
So anything else you want to talk about? I'm more curious. I think I need to hear more about your opinion about this movie because it's a movie. It's a different thing than Chud 1.
Yeah, but it's so fun. I mean, it really checks all the boxes. It's probably a little understated compared to some of the other horror comedies of this time. You know, Class of Nukem High, which was just a little bit earlier.
Oh, right.
Bad Taste, It's Alive.
Those are all like such a different parking lot, even, you know, because you know, those are especially you know, just so much gore on screen. It's all visceral and there, and this is very like, don't show that. Which is
but I mean, it's the same. You're traveling in the same direction.
Yeah,
and it's hard to knock it for the fun aspect of it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the shenanigans of
this is
the Gloss, Bill and Ted.
Yeah, it gives me the sensations, you know, like watching it, because I've seen it so many times. But I'm like, well, of course, I'm gonna watch it again. Why would I not? But I'm like, there's certain parts where I'm like, oh shit, Dave is gonna be like, yeah, can't do the episode this week. I'll catch you next week, and then that just continues until we never speak again. I'm like, oh, this is such a stupid movie. I'm so stupid, Chris, watching stupid bullshit. But I'm watching it over to my right with no sound, like I do every week. The movie is always playing next to me, and I'm just like, I love this. I love this stupid shit. It's so good. This is VHS at its worst and finest, all at the same time. I fucking love it. So the fact that you hadn't seen it before and you're seeing it now, and enjoying it even to some degree, is refreshing to me and kind of a load off my mind. Because I don't know.
I enjoyed it very much, man. There is zero in this movie that would make me hesitate to watch it again. There is nothing that would make me hesitate to watch it again. It's all good, man.
Did you catch the Robert Englund cameo?
I did not.
So there's a shot.
Where the hell was he at?
There's a shot of a bunch of trick-or-treaters, and it's kind of above, if that rings any kind of bell. It's like right before they're maybe going towards the school dance, like in that kind of section of the movie.
Is it right before he picks up the kid? He picks up the kid, and he's getting ready to eat the kid. Then he sees about the school dance, and he's like, "Small fry."
Oh yes. It was in that. It may have been right before that. Actually, I forget exactly.
Okay.
But he's uncredited, but you see him walking across the street. I think he's got a trench coat on, and there he is, Robert Englund himself.
Oh wow. Yeah.
And so,
very nice.
I'll always have that.
Yeah, that dude has never turned down a role.
What did you? So since we're getting here towards the end of the podcast, the end of the movie, another thing, like there's not a lot of info about Chud 2, unfortunately, that I can find at least. My Google Foo is not strong. I think that they shot that pool scene at the end first. I really do. And maybe somebody that worked on the movie could tell us sometime, because I'd love to know anything about this movie. But I feel like they shot that scene first because it's really good. I love the effects and everything for the whole scene. Like I think are really good. You know, Bud rips his heart out. It's about the only real gore scene in the whole movie, and you know, presents it to the girl. And I feel like they did that whole scene. And then we're like, oh shit, we're out of money. We have a whole rest of a movie to finish. Yeah. So we don't have any money.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when the zombies are all, you know, blowing up and yeah. But, that's so possible, and that is common. That is actually more common than any other method of shooting a Hollywood film, is to shoot them in reverse order.
Right, yes. And what do you... So I guess, I don't know for sure, but I think at some point this movie was going to have a theatrical release at the time, but then got the old straight to VHS, which honestly doesn't bother me, because that's how I saw it first, and that's how I've seen it so many times since. And how bad do you think this movie would have done if it had released in theaters in 1989? Like, what do you think this would have had any kind of... would it have just dropped off and nobody would have ever paid attention to it again, or do you think it would have helped it? What do you think there?
I mean, I don't think it would have helped it. Right, but so same as we did for the 1984, let's look at the movies that came out in 1989. Roadhouse, yes. Bill and Ted, Karate Kid, Weekend at Bernie's, Lean on Me, Uncle Buck, Lethal Weapon 2,
holy shit,
The Abyss, Parenthood, Beaches, The Burbs, super underrated horror movie we should do at some point.
I agreed.
Earth Girls Are Easy, Harlem Nights, Leviathan,
Little Monsters,
K9 with Jim Belushi, Pumpkinhead, as reviewed on this show. Yeah, there's just Tango and Cash. The Wizard.
Let me give you some fuel real quick. So Little Monsters, Fred Savage, has a monster under his bed who's Howie Mandel and who freaked me the fuck out when I was a kid. Still freaks me out a little bit as an adult. He's a very ugly monster. His dad was Daniel Stern.
Yeah, fucking blue and shit.
His dad was Daniel Stern in that movie. Dad? Fred Savage.
Holy shit!
So there's a Chud connection.
So hear me out here. Kids see something sometimes in these warped type of realities. Mm-hmm. So maybe Daniel Stern, after he attempts to knock off his friend John Hurd's kid, he goes on to have a family of his own. But by this time, he's befriended and tamed one of the Chud who lives under his son's bed.
Hey. Works for me. I'm on board. Oh, man. But, you know, to go back to the 89 movies, there's a lot of good stuff. Which Karate Kid was it? 2 or 3? 3. It was Karate Kid 3. All those movies, I'll be honest, a lot of great movies in 1989. I would still pick Chud 2. I'm a freak for this movie. I don't know why. Nostalgia is
I just want to do a little
special thing, and this movie has it for me.
I want to do a little experiment.
Okay.
I want to do a little experiment. So, did the 80s really have more better movies, or are we just biased by nostalgia? So, pick any year in the 2000s to 2019. Any year in between there.
2006.
2006. Let's see. Best movies of 2006. You still have Talladega Nights. I mean, just at a first look, it might be 2006 might have been a down year. Talladega Nights, Inside Man, which I love. Or like really well. Grandma's Boy, Mission Impossible 3.
I do like Grandma's Boy.
The remake of Poseidon, Slither. You do have Slither.
Oh, Slither's great. Slither is great.
You do have Deja Vu, which I'm all about the Denzels. Good Shepherd, which is underrated.
I don't know.
The Illusionist. I'm stretching here to find something good. Nacho Libre, which is, I don't know how you feel about it. It's probably my least favorite Jack Black movie.
I've seen
the remake of Wicker Man.
Oh, the Nick Cage Wicker Man. See,
Ultraviolet.
That could be an interesting topic to have on the show one day. Is just nostalgia and. Is it because we have such nostalgia for that time? VHS days and but like just looking at 89, it's like all these movies that I don't know, something was different.
2006 had some decent movies, so Tenacious D,
good stuff.
Benchwarmers, yeah, but not so much on the horror tip.
Yeah, that could. It's interesting, and nostalgia is a to me a very kind of unique feeling or emotion, and I mean 2006 is almost 20 years ago now. And
fuck.
I mean, I just don't have the nostalgia for that time that I do for these, like these VHS movies that we used to get, and I don't know. There's different nostalgias for different things, I guess, but nostalgia. My nostalgia for Chud 2 is like up there. Holy shit! Quick story. Several years ago, when people were still buying VHSs to a certain degree, and they weren't as complete as a niche market as they are now. And you could go to a flea market and there would be like 100 million VHSs and just a smattering of DVDs at the time. We're talking like 2002 to 3 to 5, thereabout. And me and my wife were in one, and I randomly found a literally a used copy of Chud 2 that had the, that plastic shell covering that you would pick up at the video store with the cover like cut to fit into it. And I'm like, I have to if this is $200, I don't care. I have to buy this. And I still have it, and it is it's the only one that I have that came from like a legit video store. And
oh wow! Though that bigger cover like that, I mean, that is a collector's dream. If of people that there's a niche of people that collect the VHS, and that's
VHS is making some kind of weird comeback. Like I'll randomly just. I was watching like music production stuff on YouTube one day, and like I was watching this guy give tips on things, and he's showing his studio off, and he's showing horror movies on a VHS tape and a CRTV. I'm like, what the fuck? And then I'm watching this other thing, and there's another person collecting VHS tapes. I'm like, what is going on? I wish I still had most of my collection left from 20 years ago. I would gladly sell most of that to you right now. But unfortunately, I only kept like the important ones, like Chud 2. I'm not getting rid of that. But yeah, that's one of my
that is
flea market finds, is that it's got like the been rented 1 million times, like wear to it and everything. Ugh, so perfect. The cover of it, speaking of it, is the other maybe final connection to the original, is like the manhole cover. There's actually 2 covers. I'm such a fucking nerd right now, and I understand how much of a nerd I sound knowing that there's 2 different covers to Chud 2. One I think is a newer creation, like within the last 20 years, for like a DVD. But the original one shows like a group of like more of the humanoid looking Chuds. It's a drawing. It's like a painting or whatever. And then the Chud that's coming up out of the manhole below them is more of the original 84 Chud with the shit lips, shit mouth. What'd you call it?
Gaped anal sex mouth with teeth.
Yes, that one. So it's got if I put my own like warped mind onto it, it's like him transforming into like the kind of shitty Chuds from Chud 2. And then the second cover is just not. It's like the end of the movie, which we should talk about before we end this, because they set up they kind of were trying to set up a sequel, more clever than they maybe should have been trying. But could you see a sequel to this? I mean, really? I mean, if it kept going in the direction it was going, like, would it be a courtroom drama? Would it be a kids Nickelodeon show? Like, I don't know what direction to go after Chud 2.
I don't know. You got the Robert Vaughn, the general. You've got the hot lady, and then you've got the slacker kid, all as
and
Chuds moving into the future.
The poodle is still rocking.
The poodles, yes, the poodle.
And that, I just remember just laughing at him saying, "Shh, I'm undercover," and then covers up. I'm like, my little kid brain was like, "That's so stupid," and that maybe shaped my brain for the rest of my life.
It was sweet. It was sweet in the fact that he knew his nerd friend had a crush on Katie, and he like in a very misogynistic way, like, I give you my girlfriend. You guys would be great.
Right.
So.
And that is the second cover, basically, is it shows like the back of it's drawn kind of generically. I was gonna say poorly. It's not poorly. It's just kind of generic looking. It's kind of like the back of the truck, and like you see eyes under a like a cover or something, and so that's the second cover.
But both covers are false advertising for what the movie is.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't have. Bud, none of the chuds have radioactive eyes.
Yeah.
There's never a part where there's 3 people hiding in the truck trying to get away, and there's a chud hiding under a tarp in the back. And,
Yeah.
Yes, but
Maybe
okay,
someday.
But I'll take it.
Maybe the 40th anniversary cover. You know, it did come out on DVD finally, so I have a DVD of it. I had to get it in like one of those like 6-pack like Midnight Express, horror collection kind of deals like 10 years ago. That was the only way to ever get it. I can't ever see it coming out on Blu-ray. If it is out on Blu-ray, let me know because I need to get it. And there is a vinyl from back in the day of the soundtrack that I literally just looked up right before we did this episode rather, and it was like $30, $35. I'm like, shit. You could the radioactive looking Chud 1 is probably 2 times that. So vinyl collectors, get out there and get it.
Yeah, they mean business. They will hurt you over precious vinyl.
I don't think I have much left to say. Is there anything else that you want to cover over anything before we get to our final opinions?
I do feel a little bit like a failure because you mentioned the movie Troll. And neither one of us said, "Oh my God, they're eating her, and then they're going to eat me."
Oh my God, that's Troll 2. To be fair for both of us. So,
okay, yes.
Which honestly, I watched that when I was a younger kid. Loved that movie. I've not watched it as an adult, so we may have to do that one day. It's, there's the documentary. Maybe we do the documentary, the worst movie ever made, or something it was called. I don't know that I'd go that far, but it was certainly not. It was not Amadeus. I don't even know if that's good. Never watched it, but I've heard good things. Let's get to our overall opinions and rate Chud 2, Bud the Chud, 1989. Let's do it. Dave, final opinion and rating?
You go first this time. You go first this time.
Oh, I don't know that there's a movie that I've talked about more than Chud 2 over the life of Horror House, other than maybe like Return of the Living Dead or Day of the Dead, which is a weird like trilogy that I have. Like at my upper echelon is Return of the Living Dead, Day of the Dead, Chud 2, but the Chud. I don't know.
These things are not like the others.
Yeah. It's campy. It's honestly stupid. It's, to kids, I think it's probably still pretty great. To people that can accept the campiness and the stupidity of it, I think it's still good, and you've reinforced that into my heart, which I thank you for. Like, and the kicking the dog down the stairs, it's like that's fucking funny. You don't see that shit anymore.
Oh my God, yes, I chuckled. Stella may deny it, but she cannot. She chuckled as well.
You're like, I can't believe you're laughing, but you're like also like, oh, I can't believe they fucking did that. And it's nostalgia, like I talked about in the previous Chud 1. Like, it's this VHS nostalgia thing. Like, this may be my most rented VHS movie ever. And wow. I'd say, kids that were, 80s kids, 90s kids that were renting movies and video games at the time, if you've not seen Chud 2, you owe it to yourself to somehow see Chud 2. It's on Tubi right now for free. So, well, what's it going to hurt? I'm like a pusher. That said, given everything and the story and the acting, which, everything, out of 10, and I have to be honest, Dave, and I have to rate it properly. I know for everyone listening, if they've made it this far, I have to be honest and rate it accordingly. Like I
You're
said,
gonna get called out.
I know.
You're gonna get called out here.
I have to deduct my points properly and be honest and know that, a 10 out of 10 is a thing that is perfect. Like I said in the last week. And nothing is perfect. As much as I love Chud 2. Yeah, as much as I love Chud 2, Bud the Chud, it is not a perfect movie. But Dave, Chud 2 for life, yes. Motherfuckers, 9 out of 10. I don't care. Bam, highest rating.
Nice.
I don't care. I don't care. I'll fight him, Dave. I'll fight him.
No, I love it. I'll fight him. I'm glad. It warms the cockles of my heart when we have a movie that inspires you to loosen up with because you're the tough critic of the group.
I am strict.
You're the yes. And I play fast and loose with my ratings, but I love so many movies, and so I'm going to really give this a movie. Where was I at with Chud 1? 7.5?
Yeah.
So Chud 2, I'm going to go 8.5.
Holy shit.
Because the movies like that have a little more gore and a little more raunchy humor.
Right.
Dead Alive, They Live.
Bad Taste.
Bad Taste. Those to me are the 9s and 9.5s. So right. I'll go 8.5 for this.
Wow. I can't even believe it. Yeah. I cannot believe it. And that's why there's a Horror House podcast.
Or you thought I'd go lower?
No, I thought you would. I was banking. I was like, let's see if he goes at least to where I rated Chud 1 at 6.5. I wasn't sure if you would.
Oh, you thought I was going to go down?
Yeah.
No, man, I love these. The
originally
camp and
before
the
we
goof and the fun.
Right. But I mean, after we've done this episode, I was like, maybe he'll rate it a little bit higher. I don't know. So
I can understand too, because you were probably thinking though every time you've brought up Chud 2, and I'm like, yeah. You're probably thinking
every time I
watched this movie and he don't even like that fucking movie. But I thought I had watched it. I really thought I had watched it. When I went back and watched Chud for this assignment, I liked it a lot more than I was expecting to. I was expecting to like it a little less than I did. So.
Right. On average, if we put our scores together, I mean, I'm no mathematician, and it's probably a little bit wrong, but I mean, we're somewhere around a 7.5 or a 8, I would think, for the Chud dilogy, if you will, which is not bad. That's really not bad.
No, that's not bad. Not bad at all.
And like I said, if you are into like just campy, goofy, stupid 80s VHS horror comedy kind of things, you owe it to yourself to check them both out. Check out Chud and then check out Chud 2, just so you can get the shock that Dave experienced of being like, this has nothing to do with the fucking first one.
Right.
And I kind of love it for that.
I really went into Chud 2 thinking, okay, here's where Chud 1 was. The sequel was direct to DVD or to direct to VHS.
Right.
It's going to be cheaper. It's going to be more of the same. So
yeah, and it is.
That's what I was expecting, but I was blown away.
I give it the chef's kiss. I'll get a Chud 2 tattoo before I'm dead, hopefully. And yeah, check it out, especially you trashy, garbage 80s, 90s kids, VHS rental kids. You're gonna have a good time. And if you don't, you're lost. You're lost. I don't know you anymore. 9 out of 10.
Watch this movie. Watch the movie. It's a solid 8.5.
Yes, and we will see you next horror time, next horror channel. No, same horror channel. That's it. Shit.
Same horror frequency.
Oh shit! Can we broadcast on AM?
Thank you to our sponsor, Joe Bob's Seed Emporium.
Get the seed you need.